It's time for the Bison Beat with KSJB Sports Director Kyle Dean and voice of the Bison, Jeff Culhane. Brought to you by First Class Aviation Maintenance and Flight School and Hefty Seed of Lisbon, North Dakota. Now, here's Kyle Dean and Jeff Culhane.
Hey, all right. Thank you very much. Kyle Dean here with you on this Wednesday, a chilly Wednesday, that's for sure. By the way, thank you very much for Jared Stevens for filling in last week. Well, right now, let's head to the phone lines. We are talking to voice of the Bison himself. It's Jeff Culhane. Hey, Jeff, how you doing today?
Kyle, how are you doing? How's the sleep been the last week?
Sleep? What is that, Jeff? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Congratulations to you and your wife on the newborn. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you very much. And he is doing very well. And that's the best present we could ask for Christmas is a healthy baby. So we're excited for that.
Great. That's awesome.
Yes.
Good for you guys.
Thank you. Well, I have to say once again, thank you to Jared for filling in. And it was a huge game last weekend versus South Dakota State. And they came back into the Fargodome, but different results this time, right, Jeff?
Well, it was a pretty impressive performance, Kyle. You know, the energy and the build-up for that rematch was at an all-time high. And, South Dakota State felt like they had some momentum. They felt good. They felt confident coming in because they had done it before. But it's just a whole nother atmosphere, a whole nother level when you're trying to win in Fargo during the playoffs. And nobody's won twice in Fargo ever before in the same season. Mm-hmm. So SDSU came in and started great. I mean, 10-0. Felt like an extension of the second half of the first game right away in that first quarter there. But I tell you what, over the final three quarters of that game, the Bison were as dominant as I've seen them. It was very impressive.
And, even being down 10-0 in the first quarter, it didn't go to their head at all. They just played very well. And look at the final score. They really came out a knocking after those last three quarters.
Well, there was no panic. It's such a composed group. It starts with the head coach, Chris Klieman. I mean, you talk about a guy that is a true leader and trickles all the way down to the bottom rung of the ladder, per se, and nothing changed. The mentality didn't change, and after things got rolling there and the team got settled in, and they just did their jobs and executed the game plan, this game went to a whole other level. 23 total plays ran by South Dakota State in the final three quarters for only 30 total yards of offense. A phenomenal stat when you think about it, and the Bison dominated time of possession, 40-plus minutes time of possession, and 10 of 13 converting on third downs. It truly was a dominant performance by North Dakota State.
And now I have to talk about Lance Dunn and the running game. That has all of a sudden just sprung to life, hasn't it?
Well, Lance Dunn's had a great year. He was looked at before the season started as perhaps maybe the third or the fourth option in the backfield of all these returning guys. And when you were wondering who was going to divvy up the carries, Lance Dunn, I think, to start the year, was looked at as the guy that might not get as many. But he has stepped up in a big way. He's been injury-free. He's been able to pick up shoulder the load when guys like King Frazier and Bruce Anderson have been out here this season. And Lance Dunn has had a phenomenal year. He's almost right there at that 1,000-yard rushing mark for the season. So he has got a very bright future in this offense for North Dakota State. And the running attack itself is because the Rams up front are playing at an all-time high. This group has gelled together. There's so much familiarity. The continuity is there, obviously. These guys play basically every snap for the most part. And over the last 3 or 4 games, the Bison have ran the football as well as we've seen them all year long.
And that's a great thing because it takes pressure off Easton Stick because, the passing game, that's a huge factor too. But with that running game, it's just kind of nice for Easton to take a little break every now and then, right, if the running game's going so well.
Well, Easton Stick's playing at a high level right now also. Very efficient with the football, and he's a part of that running game. Mm-hmm. He was the leading rusher in the win over San Diego with 99 rushing yards. He was one of the top three rushers in the win over South Dakota State last week. He's really doing a nice job with the zone read. That's been a nice little wrinkle that Tim Polasek has thrown in there over the past few weeks or so. So Easton Stick is as much of the running game as the running backs are. And when that's happening, that opens things up for Darius Shepard, R.J. Ursendowski, and Jeff Ilias in the passing game as well. And in that facet, Easton is making good decisions, and he is throwing the football as accurately as we've seen him this year right now as well.
That's just awesome because, we have the semifinals coming up here. Before we get to the NDSU semifinal game, we have to talk about the next one because whoever wins that game, is in the championship game. What do you see for the other semifinal game going on Saturday?
Well, Eastern Washington and Youngstown State. We all know how good Eastern Washington is. I mean, they've had a phenomenal year. Their only blemish is the loss in overtime here at Fargo back on September the 10th. And they really haven't slowed down. They've been just so good throwing the football. Gage Grubrud has been lights out amazing. I really am anticipating Eastern Washington to advance to Frisco and beat Youngstown State. Unfortunately for Youngstown State, Kyle, they've had a ton of off-the-field issues this week. Mm-hmm. They've had a few guys that have failed drug tests. They've had another player, Martin Ruiz, that has been brought up on gun charges this last couple of weeks as well. So they're going to have some key players not playing in this game. And I don't care who you play. In the playoffs, when you go on the road and you have a few of your key guys out against a good football team, it's tough to accomplish a victory. So I anticipate Eastern Washington winning this game and advancing to Frisco.
And Eastern Washington, last week, they won 38-0, a shutout. Is their defense on a roll right now?
I don't know if they're on a roll. They're getting better. The team they played, Richmond, was just flat out of gas, Kyle.
Okay.
They were so banged up. They were down to some third-string players. They're down to their backup quarterback. Just not much left in the tank. They went to Grand Forks and came from behind and beat UND, a game UND should have won a couple of weekends ago. Then they had to fly all the way out to the opposite end of the country and play Eastern Washington and Washington State. So give their defense credit. I think it was probably more about what Richmond had left than what Eastern Washington's defense is doing right now.
Well, Jeff, when we come back, we'll talk about the Bison semifinal game. It's a big one coming up in Fargo. We're going to take a quick break. And like I said, when we come back, we're talking about that semifinal game, that Fargo. It's going to be rocking on your Friday nights.
Did you ever look to the skies and dream of flying an airplane? Quit dreaming and contact First Class Aviation to schedule your discovery flight, where a first-class instructor will take you up in one of their airplanes. Call 952-1515, 952-1515. Aircraft maintenance is also available. Just call to schedule your aircraft. And they offer aircraft rental, too. Owners are NDSU Bison team makers at First Class Aviation, Flight School, and Aircraft Maintenance at Jamestown Airport. Go Bison!
Don't give up on your soybeans too early. Hi, I'm Darren Hefty with Hefty Seed Company. Far too often we see yield left on the table because either the growing season just wore people down or they simply were tired of spending more money. If a $5 investment turned into $10 to $40 in a month, would you do it? To find these opportunities, keep scouting your fields all the way until the soybeans start to turn yellow. There's a potential for a very nice crop. Don't leave yield on the table by giving up on your soybeans too early. Call 1-800-27-HEFTY for the answers to your agronomic questions.
Done! Couple of blockers! Done! 35! Breaks the tackle! Far sideline! 10! 5! In there! End zone! Touchdown!
It's a football Friday night in Fargo. Hi, this is Jeff Culhane. Join me and our entire network broadcast team as North Dakota State is 4 quarters away from a chance at their 6th straight national championship. The champions of the Colonial, 12-1 James Madison, come to town. Pre-game coverage begins at 5:30 on the Peterson Farm Seed Bison Radio Network.
NDSU Bison football right here on AM 600 KSJB. Streaming online at ksjbam.com. Hey, welcome back to the Bison Beat. Thank you to our fine sponsors for this entire season that make this show possible. First Class Aviation and Hefty Seed in Lisbon, North Dakota. Let's head back to the phone lines where we are talking to the voice of the Bison himself, Jeff Culhane. Once again, Jeff, thank you for joining us for all these Wednesdays for the last couple months or so.
Yeah, it's been fun, Kyle. Thanks for having me on, and we appreciate you guys as a and affiliates on the Peterson Farm Seed Bison Radio Network, and a big thanks to your sponsors as well, making this possible here every Wednesday.
Yes, and you know what? It's just great what you guys have done all season, and you guys are not done yet because we have a semifinal matchup that is just, it's huge. It's in Fargo, but looking who you guys are playing, they just, they were scoring. James Madison scored 65 points against Sam Houston State. Wow, what are the Bison going to do with that?
Well, they're playing so well right now, Kyle, and they also scored 55 versus New Hampshire, a conference foe, in the second round game, or rather the second round game, a couple of weeks ago, and their offense is so good. I mean, they're right around 50 points per game. They run the football almost at 300 yards per game. They're balanced. They're up tempo. They're a unique look. And their head coach, Mike Houston, in his first season, has been preaching ever since the summertime. He has been saying, if you want to win a national championship, you have to go to Fargo and beat North Dakota State. So this has been their rally. This has been their battle cry all season long, even into the off season last summer. So they are excited, they are confident, and they're coming in here playing some great football right now.
And I'm taking a look here. They have won 10 in a row, and they're, like you said, they're playing spectacular football. But the biggest challenge by far is going to Fargo. And the defense, of course, for the Bison, they have been very well here later in the season. Are they worried about this offense that's scoring, like you said, almost 50 points per game?
I don't think they're worried, Kyle. I think they respect this offense. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You know, anytime you have a team that comes in with guys like Brian Shore at 74% completion percentage at quarterback, he's the offensive player of the year in the Colonial. Khalid Abdullah might be a running back that gets a chance to play on Sundays. Their tight end, Jonathan Kloosterman, is at 5 touchdowns right now on the season. That's tied for best on the team. You have to be prepared for all phases. If you take away the run, Brian Shore can throw it. They're an up-tempo team, so that's a unique look, but they're also physical. You don't see that very often. And the Bison are pretty darn good defensively themselves. As you said, they're only allowing right around 99 yards rushing per ball game, which was one of the best numbers in all of the country. So it's a tremendous challenge, and I think one of the big things to watch, one of the storylines to watch, both lines of scrimmage. The Bison offensively attempting to run the football, and James Madison on their side against Code Green trying to be physical and run the football as well. So usually when you try and come into the Fargodome and beat the Bison at their own brand of football, that doesn't bode very well for you. But JMU does it as good as anyone around the country.
And, you know, I'm taking a look at the series here. This is the second meeting between these two. The last one was a 26-14 win in Fargo. That was back in the second round of the 2011 FCS playoffs. Now, how was the crowd this last weekend versus South Dakota State? And are they going to have to be even a higher level of energy in that dome?
Well, Kyle, it was a phenomenal crowd. It was as loud as I've heard it in my short time here. And the crowd was awesome. You know, you hear about what playoff atmospheres are like at the Fargodome, and that was one last weekend against South Dakota State. With a game on Friday night at 6 o'clock, I would imagine people are taking off whole days of work or half days of work to get lined up and get the tailgating ready to go. And you're 4 quarters away from Frisco with that on the line here once again. I would have to imagine another unbelievable atmosphere at the Fargodome. And
I have to give credit to the tailgaters. I don't know how they do it with this weather, but you could tell they're hardcore North Dakota State Bison fans, aren't they?
They love it, Kyle. There's no question. And you see the guys take their shirts off and do the snow angels. More power to them. I couldn't pull that off. I know that for a fact.
Well, we should have a challenge now.
Again, no chance. You're on your own there.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't even do it either. Not at all. Yeah. Well, of course, you know, we're going to wrap up the show here for this afternoon. Is there anything else that you want to add since it's a Friday night game? Anything else you got?
I just hope people understand how special this is right now and appreciate what these players and coaches are accomplishing and have another chance to get back and achieve the goal, and that's to get back to Frisco, 4 quarters away on Friday night.
Hey, you put it perfectly, Jeff. Hey, thank you for joining us here on this Wednesday again, and we hope to be talking to you next week for some championship football. How does that sound, Jeff?
That sounds great to me, Kyle. Thanks for having me on as always.
No problem. Have a great week.
You too.
That's once again Jeff Culhane, the voice of the Bison. For today's Bison Beats, the Bison play Friday night right here on KSJB and KSJBAM.com. They are taking on James Madison. It's in the Fargodome. Friday Night Lights. Oh, doesn't that sound just exciting?